Welcome back to Everything Whiskey. I'm Callum.
And I'm Sam.
And today we're looking at the Jim Beam Small Batch.
Alrighty, so today, small batch, another budgety option. Well, before we get into it, how much was it actually?
$70.
70, so really not that budgety. But it is an interesting one. Jeez, it's dark. I don't have it. I've got just the regular Jim Beam in front of me today. Basically the small batch is an Australian and New Zealand exclusive release of the Jim Beam. It's 40%. No surprise, but it's also been blended a tiny bit with Tawny, which is an Australian port. Yeah. So you're probably going to be getting some extra kind of like, that sherry, porty, kind of like dark, overripe grapefruits, fortified wine kind of notes. I just find it super interesting, and I'm excited to try it when we finally can get back together. I'm excited to try it just to see any difference, because you said it smells very similar to the original Jim Beam.
It smells like Jim Beam with plums, basically.
Yeah.
Like you would get those, the very kind of budgety, like oakiness and all that kind of stuff. The oak carries through, but there are those dark fruits like plums.
Yeah. Obviously
coming from the port Tawny, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I think it's crazy that they've got kind of a New Zealand, Australian kind of only release for Jim Beam, and that's not below 40%, because we get some of their stuff, like their regular white label isn't even 40%, and that's still called Bourbon. You would think that, and that's a release that's everywhere, it's just not the same proof here. You would think that like a New Zealand and Australia only release would most definitely be at that lower proof, under 40, but it is 40. Which is not like what I would have guessed. A bit counterintuitive, but I'm glad for it. I'm surprised. I don't think I'm ever expected myself to be glad that something is at least 40%.
Scraping in.
Like just legally, But
for anyone wondering, it's batch number 2019-1, by the way. So, anyone that actually cares.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure they're all different as well.
What do you mean?
I read, I'm pretty sure they do different releases for this small batch. Pretty sure like there's some difference in each release they do. This master distiller's name is Fried Joe.
Fried Joe.
Why is his name Fried? That can't be it.
Fried? Maybe it's just his nickname around the distillery. Old Fried Joe. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's so dark. That's something I've noticed, is it is so dark. It looks like stag. Like, why?
It's black, basically.
Why is it so black? It's 5 years old, if we didn't mention that before. It's supposed to be 5 years old, blended with a very small amount of port.
It's probably just the Tawny.
Is it the port? Yeah, it must just be the Tawny, I guess. We'll get into notes, so you can start throwing at us.
So, already given the nose. Yeah, basically the nose is Jim Beam with some dark fruits on it. That's basically all you get. Ooh, it's a lot sweeter. It's like brown sugar, a bit of cinnamon. There's some nice spice in there, actually, which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I get like that kind of vanilla essence and wood bitterness and sweetness
in the normal one.
I'm not really getting like that. Any what spices did you say with this? Cinnamon,
maybe even a bit of nutmeg as well. Yeah, those the dark fruits from the Tawny actually carry through quite nice. It's very sweet, very round. There's plums. Maybe a bit of even like grape, like maybe the rind of a grape.
So because I mean, I'm not surprised that I'm not getting that on the regular Jim Beam. Like it's more just kind of like typical. It's a bit. Is that one like thicker tasting? Because this one's like is it more oily? Because I think that's oily, definitely what.
And it's got a lot of heft behind it.
That's definitely what Jim Beam needed, was some like thickness, some density of flavor.
They still carry it on as well, which I'm not used to with a Jim Beam. But yeah, those flavors carry through nice. It's very sweet, almost like vanilla brown sugar-ish kind of stuff.
I've always liked the brown sugar notes in bourbon. Like when we first came across it heavily in that 2019 release of the Woodford Reserve Double Oak. That was
something like that.
That one was really nice, deep brown sugar. So I'm excited to taste that one. It's so dark. I can't get over how dark it is.
I want to know. I wish they told us what Tawny they used.
I'm sure it's like you can find it out somehow, but from like just a casual bit of research into it, it's not showing up. It's probably just like a local one they've done some sort of deal with barrels and stuff. It would have worked out fine, but it's Jim Beam. Like Beam Suntory could get anything. But I guess like in Australia, there's quite a few wineries and stuff that are making a lot of different types of ports and stuff, sweet wines and stuff like the Morris Rutherglen. Anything that they know is good that they can get in large proportions.
All it says on the bottle is that it's supplied in Australia by Beam Suntory, and it's supplied in New Zealand by NZ Beam Suntory. So, and distributed by Coca-Cola. So there's not that much information to go on.
There's not going to be much with Jim Beam. I'm excited to taste it because from what you're saying,
really
it's
nice.
much,
Like
from what you're saying, it's a lot more interesting, and it's like something I would be super happy to just sip on. I guess like technically because it's not bourbon. It's because it's mixed with other, so it's definitely not bourbon. So I guess maybe that's also why they didn't want to do it in America, because like you have to legally change a lot of designations, like category designations. It would just have to be called like a corn spirit distilled.
So those regulations don't have to carry over. If it's
I thought so, because it had to be made there.
Small batch Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey on the label.
Yeah, exactly. Then I don't think that could be legal in America. I think they have to legally change that. I thought you would assume that like if it's bourbon, it has to stand up to the bourbon criteria, which is an American criteria. So surely wherever it's actually going to end up, it should have to meet the same criteria because it's being where it's made. But we're gonna have to get down. We did an Australian a history on Australian whiskey and the regulations recently, if you want to watch that. But we didn't get into that that specific subject, and that's because we still haven't figured it out. We are gonna eventually figure it out and make a video on it, but it is probably the answer from what I'm getting is that it's just a bit of a loophole.
Alright, so summary of the notes. So on the nose, it's very much like the original Jim Beam, only with those the dark fruits that come through, obviously from the Tawny or port. Taste
extra.
Yeah, a bit of. I mean, it's very similar on the nose. Like you get those very young, bright notes, but there's also the plums and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, more dense, sweet flavors from the Tawny.
The taste, it's actually quite different from the regular. It's very rounded, very dark fruit, brown sugar, very vanilla. The oak's still there, but it's nowhere near as much as it is in the regular Jim Beam.
Yeah.
This Tawny, whatever Tawny it is and how much they added, it changes it quite a bit and it's really enjoyable. So
I think the subject itself was super interesting, that we can kind of add just a completely different alcohol into a bourbon, and here we can call it bourbon still. And we'll probably have to keep doing a bit of a deep dive on that kind of specific reasons why it's possible, but I am excited to try that one at least. Just because if it's more drinkable, then I don't really care that it's not technically all whiskey, because it's like it's Jim Beam anyway, so it's not really like something I'd categorize as my like golden tier has to be pure.
That's another thing. I don't know if we mentioned it. This mouthfeel is so much thicker than the original one. Oily, and the finish lasts for 30-40 seconds, which is really good.
That's so much better than the regular one. It just it ends like after like 5 seconds.
Yeah, the original just falls off.
It just kind of goes like dry wood and then it's done. Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm excited to actually try it. Alrighty, thank you very much for watching this episode of Everything Whiskey. If you liked it, leave us a like. If you want to see future episodes from us, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you do, we'll see you next one. Cheers.